Hey, how many times are we supposed to drink our drink?
However many times you
As
need to
many
before the
times as
podcast
you.
ends. Yeah.
Nor's still
I mean, I
working
still
on
have
drink
a.
one.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Novels and Nightcaps, the podcast where we read, we drink, and we ramble. As always, my name is Gabe,
And I'm Nor.
and this here is my father. Say hello, father.
Hello, Father.
I knew you were going to do that. I had it.
You
I
walked into
was
That's
that
because
one.
looking
you
at
did
this,
it.
and I knew it was going to happen.
Well,
Today we're
the way
talking
you
about.
said it.
Listen, okay. So today we're talking about the long-awaited Red Rising. This is the first book in the Red Rising saga. It's by Pierce Brown. I'm a big fan. I read it over a year ago now, so it's not exactly fresh on my memory, but my father here and Noor just recently read it. And I think today is going to be a contentious conversation. Hopefully a good conversation. Hopefully a very good conversation. But as always, before we get started, let's go ahead and talk about what we're drinking. So Noor, what are you drinking?
This is the most nervous I've ever been for an episode here. I feel like I'm in, I'm being judged really heavily today, and I will be. But today I got myself whiskey and cola, or bourbon and cola.
Why is the ice
My
melted
reasoning.
like that? It's just like little
Don't even.
nugget. It's like you've had like two or three. Like the ice is just left over.
The
That's why
ice.
he didn't show us the bottle earlier.
Some
The
weak
ice machine was not working.
Yeah.
Whiskey, nice, heavy, really deep, and there's a lot of that in this book. And then it gets washed down by a bunch of nothing. I don't know how to explain this. I'll get into it.
Wait.
It's just a lot of YA, a lot of tropes that I don't really care for, and a lot of plot that I don't particularly care for. So that's my excuse for this drink.
This is going to be really good. I'm excited to talk about this. Dad, what are you drinking?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm new to this. I don't know exactly what we're supposed to be doing, but I put together a paper plane, and I went with the paper plane. One paper plane, Red Rising. They both have imagery of ascension, right? Imagery of going up. The other thing is, so in a paper plane, it's nuanced. You got a lot going on, but your first sip, it's tart, right? The lemon comes bursting through because you got lemon going on. I feel like that's the book. Like right away, you think one thing. If you're not paying attention, it just seems like, man, it's just like this tartness, and that's all there is. But then if you pay attention and you take another drink, nor let me say that again. If you pay attention and you take another drink, you realize the complexity that's there. You realize that there's a backbone to this thing that's deeper than that first sip.
I read the first 100 pages 3 times. I think I paid enough attention.
Yeah.
Wow.
Man,
But
it's like how
I like your description.
It's like how I got an A in algebra, then retook it anyways, and got another A. It's just like I kind of got it the first time.
Yeah.
Keep going. Through
I
it.
still
Yeah,
got it.
I still got it. So I made a bit of a mistake. I'm owning up to this. I feel like I'm the one who screws up their cocktails a lot, and how horrible things happen. So I made a New York sour, and if you look really close, you can kind of see a distinction between the top layer and the bottom. A New York sour, the reason I made it initially is because there's supposed to be a sour, so lemon on the bottom, right? Lemon and bourbon and simple syrup kind of mixed up. So it has a gold color, some would say. And then you have a red wine floater on top. So you have a really nice separation. So the Red Rising, obviously, like the red is on the top, right up top of the gold. It kind of seems obvious. And then I decided, let me add some grenadine to make the wine even redder. And then everything just mixed together, which kind of characterizes my goal, because I got you both to read Red Rising. And in a sense, I'm steadily making you communist. I'm not sure if any of you have realized, but there's some heavy communist. No, don't make that face, Dad. I see that. He's using a sickle. He's literally using a sickle. The Red Rising. It is class warfare. It is definitionally a communist Marxist struggle. And that's how I introduced it to my father. Dad, welcome to Marxism.
Wow.
Anyways, thank you for coming. And I'm so glad you're here to talk about this book because, on a serious note, I really loved it. But before we get into some spoiler territory, we're going to spend some time going over a spoiler free recommendation or not. Okay. This book is very hyped. I think that's safe to say. We've all heard of it before. It's very much hyped in book circles.
I hadn't really heard of the book before.
Yeah.
For what
Because
it's worth,
this
neither
would
had
not
I.
be my genre of books.
Yeah, it's not in the funeral circles. I understand that they're not really high up on
Yes.
that's not really spreading around like fire. But okay, so overall recommendation or not recommendation, Nor, I think you're going to be a good person for this. Who is this book for? Okay, who's this book
All
for?
right. If you, oh man, we're gonna have so much fun this episode. If you are between the ages of 10 and 15 and just recently discovered communism,
10?
this book
There's
is
so
for
much.
you.
There's so much
If you have
sexual
no
assault in this book.
parenting, the violence in this book, the gruesomeness of
No,
the
no.
10. Wow.
No, I'm playing. On a serious note, if you like dystopian sci-fi, if you like, Greek and Roman mythology, if you like tales of underdogs rising up, if you like rebellion, uprisings, heavy themes of freedom and slavery and, democracy and what it means to have power, how you should be using power, and who really deserves to be at the top of the chain of the hierarchy, if there even should be one, this book is for you. If you were a big fan of, I would say, if you like books like The Hunger Games or Ender's Game, there's a lot of that in here. Some of,
The Will of
the
the Many.
gimmicks at least. And yeah, if you like The Will of the Many, this is a really good book to check out if you like The Will of the Many. They're very similar in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
And then it diverges, of course. But honestly, yeah, if you're looking for a classic underdog story, if you're looking for dystopian sci-fi uprising,
Yeah,
this-
and just to add on to that, I 100%, it's undeniable that there are some young adult fiction like elements here. That's very much the case. And so I would honestly say that this is a great bridge book, a bridge series for, number one, people who haven't been reading recently. Maybe you're getting back into reading. It's pretty high paced, it's action packed, especially the later half of the book. And it's also a really good bridge from something like Hunger Games, but adding a lot more depth, actually, I think, in some of the motivations, some of the elements. There's a lot deeper of a philosophy here rather than just straight up like oppression. There's a lot deeper levels that you don't get on a lot of YA novels. So I would say that this is definitely a bridge. And having read the series, it is an excellent bridge in that it goes beyond. I'm not going to spoil anything there, but it definitely leaves the YA territory after this book. But this is an excellent way to cross over into the space opera territory. Dad, what would you say?
Yeah, no, I think it's outside, again, the genre that I would normally read. The first part, and I know we're not breaking that down yet, but it was a little challenging, almost to the point that, where I understand, Nor, why you would give up after the first 100 pages. Because as I'm listening, I'm going, I don't know. I don't know what I think about this. Then as it kept going, the themes were incredible. So I think anyone who struggled with self-worth, with doubt, with purpose, I think the themes are so much more than just who should be at the top. I mean, that's the obvious. Who should be at the top? Should there be anyone at the top? Is it necessary for group A versus B to be at top? I mean, those are the obvious questions, but I think it's so much deeper into what is my worth? What is my value to myself, to others, to the world around me?
Yeah, and just kind of overall impressions. I think everybody can kind of gather our thoughts here. I like it a lot, and it's difficult for me to separate it from the rest of the series, but this is easily the worst in the first trilogy. Like, to me at least, I thought that this was the weakest of the three books. However, it is still in its own right quite enjoyable. I mean, it's the fact that I continued the series says something, right? So 100%, I would recommend this book. I think you need to go pick it up. You need to trudge through the first 100 pages. And I've seen some contestation on that. Some people who are really hardcore sci-fi fans, that's their favorite part of the book. It wasn't mine. I did not love the beginning of the book. It was not my thing. But I've seen other people say that was really what they were looking for. And they felt betrayed by later sections. And so either way, I would suggest you pick it up. Now, Nora, would you recommend this book?
I would recommend it to certain people, yes. The people that I already mentioned. Not,
Two young
I mean,
adults.
yeah, 2 young adults, ages 10 through 15. No. I mean, no, for sure. It's definitely a book worth checking out. I am glad I read it. And again, there is a lot of insight. I mean, we're gonna joke about it a lot. I'm not necessarily hating on this book. I think it's pretty good. I mean, we'll talk about the scores later on. But yeah, I would recommend this book. Check it out.
Before we get into spoilers, I do have a question for you. And I think this kind of pertains because anybody who's just watching this section, if they haven't heard about it, they're hearing about it now, and they're hearing that there's a lot of hype about this series. It's well known in the space. So, Nord, did you think that your expectations regarding this book at all colored your experience for the better or worse? Like, did you expect something better than you got, and that kind of made your experience of it even more, I guess, not bitter, because that's not what you are, but it diluted
No, that's
your
a good question,
experience?
Yeah, no, I didn't know about this book until you brought it up, to be completely honest. So I'm on the
I
same
promise. It's really well known.
here.
That's so cool. Okay, great. Yeah, just invalidate. Oh, okay.
Everyone's
I promise. Oh my gosh, that's funny.
But when I looked it up online, then yeah, I saw how many people were talking about this, how it's almost like universally acclaimed. After reading the book, reading the reviews, I would go to the like 1-star and 2-star reviews, and I would feel validated in a lot of my concerns. Not that that's the score that I gave it. It's just that everybody else is a 5-star, almost like glazing the book to like, oh, this is perfect, and it's like it's not perfect.
Mhm.
There is a lot of like the hype. I feel like that is something to keep in mind as you are picking up this book or any book for that matter. You make your own opinions, you make your own decisions based on the book. I actually think after the first 2 tries reading this book and not getting into it at all, I didn't have like the greatest mindset going into this book the third time, and it ended up surpassing my expectations at that point. Because
Yes.
I thought very little of it, but I also trusted you, and I know we have a lot of the same taste, so I just kept going. And again, there are pages here that I highlighted, like from start to finish. There's a lot of good in this book, and we'll talk about that as we get into it.
Yeah, and right before we switch over to the spoiler section, I realized that we didn't actually explain what the book is about. So we're gonna talk about it this whole
Well,
time.
that's because everybody's talking about it, right?
Everybody's talking about it, so everybody already knows. For those of you who don't know, I'm going over pretty early on, sections of the book / back of the book synopsis here. It is about a color-based caste system in which the golds are on the top and the reds are on the bottom. And our main character, Darrow of Lycos, is a hell diver. He's a miner in the undergrounds of Mars, and they're mining this thing called helium-3, which is supposedly used for it's supposedly used for terraforming Mars, and that's what's kind of preached down by the Golds. And as the name might suggest, it is a story of rebellion. I would say, obviously, of rising. That's pretty clear here. There's a lot of rage, a lot of aggression, a lot of testosterone. It is a bro book through and through. So, kind of without getting into spoilers here, that's what it's about. There's battles, there's duels, there's tension, there's betrayal, there's love. It's a lot jam-packed into, honestly, a not huge novel. So it is moving. So if that sounds like something you would enjoy, you should 100% pick it up. Or if you're a young adult, ages 10 to 15 or whatever, you should maybe check it out. I feel like you shouldn't be listening to a podcast called Novels and Nightcaps if you're 10 years old, but I think that's a fair assessment. Get parents' permission first before listening to this. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into some spoiler territory. Because I think that we're going to start with a section that I thought was the weakest for me. Actually, well, yeah, it tied for the weakest section, and that's characters, right? But Dad, you gave it a pretty good score. right? Isn't that correct? I'm pretty sure you gave it a pretty good score. So
Did I? I don't know what's a good score versus a bad score.
So I gave it a 6 out of 10. And Nor, you also gave it a 6 out of 10. Nor,
I
why
gave it
did you give it
7.8.
7.8? That's
7.8
really
is pretty
specific.
good.
So Nor, why did you give it
Yeah.
a 6 out of 10?
Oh, okay, so 6 out of 10. For me, Darrow felt somehow even more perfect and more of like a cardboard cutout kind of Mary Sue character than Diago did in The Will of the Many. If you haven't checked that episode, you should check it out, and also check out The Will of the Many.
That was really
But
good.
thank you. I'm getting better at this. Darrow just felt very like almost perfect, and obviously he's not perfect. He has a lot of anger. He has a lot of flaws, and and that's huge for his character, right? And it's going to be a big theme throughout the book, and I'm assuming throughout the series. But he is super smart. He very quickly is on par with these Goldens or with these golds or whatever they're called. Like I think he spent a few months or maybe a year. I'm kind of shaky on that. Like, going through like a bunch of videos and like taking drugs to like process information faster. It's like, okay, I get it. You are
Drugs
a
are so
beast.
good for that.
Yeah, yeah. This is a PSA to drugs, right?
Drugs and alcohol.
Ages 10 to 15 need to be.
Yes, the target audience. No.
You guys are going to have to edit the fool out of this thing.
Don't worry,
Man,
don't
if
worry.
we were monetized, we're demonetized.
Yeah, we
We're
would lose a lot of money here. So yeah, that's one of my main complaints. He kind of figures things out really quickly. He talks a lot about paradigm shifts. He uses that buzzword a lot, paradigm. It's like, okay, bro, we've all read that psychology book. Yeah, we get it. It's a paradigm shift. That's how you get better at life. But everybody else, there were some real standouts like Severo, I think is his
Yeah.
name. He was really cool.
What about Cassius?
Cassius was interesting, and then he kind of became not interesting, and then he became interesting again. So, kind of a roller coaster there. Virginia was cool. A little too perfect, but I think, as we'll talk about it later on, that she has some things that, might be a metaphor for Darrow's dream, or Eo's dream, really, and how it might change over time. I just think they could have been a little bit better, maybe. I don't know. There weren't any like real standouts, and I do think Darrow was too kind of perfect. He figured things out way too quickly in a lot of ways. With
Yeah,
some caveats, of course.
I do agree. I definitely agree. I think that what you said there is all really good. And honestly, I did not feel super connected to Darrow in this book. I was connected to him in the beginning with his relationship to Io, but after she passes, after she's executed, you feel the anger, you feel the rage, you feel the frustration. But beyond that, there's an element of just pragmatism and how he goes about things that I wanted a little more depth in his personal character. I get it. The circumstances that he's faced with leads him to make very clinical decisions in order to try and discover how to be a leader. And I think that's probably the strongest thing about his character is both his struggle to maintain Eo's dream while also trying to figure out how to lead, because he's never led men before. And that's the area where I'd say he does actually struggle a little bit. Because he makes mistakes in leading. He has to pivot and he has to figure out new strategies. And so that's the only thing I would say against him being too perfect. But he does win. I mean, it is a little, it's over the top, but to me, it was something that you kind of just have to accept a little bit. But he definitely is the best. I don't know.
The thing I don't get, maybe they explained it, maybe they will explain it. If the Sons of Ares had all of this technology to make this kid into such a weapon, have they done it before? Why haven't they done it before?
Yeah.
Now, I'm assuming that question will be answered at some point because it's such a glaring issue. But it kind of bothered me a lot throughout the book. It's like, oh, he's perfect. Oh my god, they made a beast out of this kid. I mean, they literally tore him apart, which that was one of the coolest scenes in the book where they literally break his bones and shed his muscles. That was brutal. That was cool.
I mean, there's
Yeah,
that.
okay, hold
one
on just a
guy.
second. Wait.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wait,
give your
wait, wait.
opinion. Give your opinion.
Let-
Yeah,
let-
because Gabe, you are being so swayed from books 2 and on that you're allowing it to minimize, I think, what made you fall in love with the series in the first place in this first book. And
No.
nor you're taking,
No.
yes, and nor you're taking all the characters you've ever read ever and trying to say, no, I feel like it's too simplified. And that's crap. That's like saying they're all Jabba the Hutt, right? Jabba the Hutt is bad because he's bad. Or Darth Vader in the very first, go back to episode 4, the very first movie of Star Wars that came out. Darth Vader's bad. Like dogs go and hide behind the couch when Darth walks out, right? When Vader comes out and does this and squishes your neck, like he's a bad guy. That's not these characters. These characters are not like that at all. These characters have places where they're going to fail, where their friends die because of decisions that they make, where there's the self-doubt that's involved, where they freaking try to kill themselves because there's no hope whatsoever. And I think that's the thing where I'm going, man, the characterization to be like, to read Darrow, to for real read it, not just as science fiction, not just as like, oh, I'm going to be in space and dance around and have on my little moon boots and jump around. But to really read it and to be like, this guy grabbed his wife's feet and pulled until she died. Are you joking me? Like that was gut wrenching, right? Just to think of whoever that person is that you adore. And maybe it's girlfriend or wife or mom, or maybe it's Banjo, maybe it's your dog
My
Banjo,
dog Banjo.
whoever it is, right?
Pull his
It's
legs.
probably your wife, not your dog. But to think like they're going to suffer if I don't grab them and pull. And yet that wasn't the most brutal thing he went through at all. And I don't think it was the physical transformation he went through. And I don't even think it was the time in the snow. I think it was knowing, like, because of my decisions, other people are harmed. It was that weight of leadership for him. And each and every single character, like, there's something different. Like, yeah, they're exceptional, ridiculous exceptional on one hand, but on the other hand, there's so much self-doubt. And as a psychology guy, like that's got to be something like you grab a hold of, right? Because you're going like that self-doubt that's still creeping in there. And I think that's what I found in real life is even the most confident people, especially the most confident people, especially the most gifted people, those tend to be the people that behind closed doors, they have some of the biggest doubts.
Just to kind of add to that to an extent, you see a little bit of both Darrow's pride and just a little bit of his self-doubt in whenever he first interacts with Cassius. And he's like, I want to instigate that guy. I want to make him mad. He's everything that Golds are in my head, right? He's everything bad with the Golds. And so he tries to make him feel bad and embarrass him by being like, you studied for the test? Like that whole situation, that whole scene. So I just to kind of agree there, like Darrow becomes kind of a jerk in order to hurt people. That has nothing to do with his mission, really, which kind of gets me to a little bit of one of the interesting elements of the book, I thought, which was this kind of relationship with anger and rage. Because that's a central through line for him. And while I would say that he doesn't really struggle much because of his rage, like it's all channeled in the right direction. And honestly, throughout all of his rage, he succeeds. Like there's not really I don't think there's many times whenever he fails because he is angry. In Red Rising, it's mostly him just steamrolling forward whenever he's pissed off. But I would say it kind of goes to question a little bit of like rage's role in society. Is it supposed to be something like this? Because it feels rotten a little bit. Like I mean, I guess there's a righteous rage. Io died. And he feels as if he's gonna avenge her, and that feels right. He gets really, really angry whenever people are raped in the story, which feels right, just. However, there's a little bit of like, no, it's through anger and rage that these people are able to stay in power. And is rage really the emotion that should drive our social change? Is that the emotion? Or should it be along it? I don't know. I just thought that was I guess that's more
good.
impact and like kind of philosophical thought provokingness. But I did think of that. Nor, you look you look not convinced. What do you think about this?
I'm still trying to get over what Billy said. It felt like being lectured on something that I am keenly aware of. Trust me, Billy. I know all of this, and that's one of the things that I don't like about the podcast is that there's such a limited amount of time that I have to kind of take a stance, and then we keep going, and I can't like dive into the nuances. But yeah, no, there's a lot about Darrow that is very compelling, very contradictory, and I like that. That is one of the strengths of Darrow's character, which is one of the best things about this book, I think. That being said, he's still too perfect and kind of boring in a plot.
Yeah.
And like
I
the little
exactly.
game that they have. So I'm not gonna change my mind on that because I kind of
Mhm.
have it made up. But I'm glad you
Well, that
voiced
was
something
totally
that
supposed to change your mind.
I agree, Nor. I still agree. He is very
it's like,
cardboard.
of course characters take steps forward and backwards, like growth isn't like exponential, it's not linear, it's a weird loop. I know that, trust me, I know that extensively. But I also really like what you said about righteous indignation, that I think that is a type of anger that we often get confused with, like the violent, hateful anger that we associate with like rebellions and mutiny and all these things that we see a lot in the real world. Whereas what we really want, or maybe what I think we really want as a society, might be righteous indignation. All these injustices in the world, they make us angry, and they make us angry for a good reason, because it's injustice. We're seeing injustice, we're seeing something that is very clearly wrong. And I think that's a really good fuel, that's a really good source to spark inspiration or inspire change and growth. And I'm interested to see how Darrow's anger evolves, and maybe something deeper, something purer is chiseled out of that personal rage and tragedy and anger, because there's a lot of hate in this book. Darrow has a lot of hate, and it's very understandable where he comes from, but already you start seeing like him kind of reflect on how to be a better leader, how to really carry out Eo's dream in a way that maybe she didn't even think was possible. And so I'm excited to see what Pierce Brown does with all of this, because it's a big question, and I'm usually more into the characters than I am like the philosophy. I'm not very philosophical, but this is one of those things that I think is very interesting. So
Yeah,
very
I
excited to
mean,
keep reading.
I think a lot of times in our world, and we see this in the book as well, that the wires get crossed on that. The distinction between righteous indignation and just violent rage are not as clear cut in actuality. I think that you're right that those are different feelings, yet in expression and in the complexity of your own body's chemistry and in your mind, those are difficult to distinguish, and a lot of times it can spill over into really carnal moments. There's a lot of brutality in this book, and it's often associated with Hunger Games. And I get it. I understand the whole it's a game where a bunch of kids are fighting and killing each other, but it feels very different. I felt this was a lot more political, and also it's obviously the aristocrats that are participating. Like, that's a big difference. The whole point of the games is significantly different in Red Rising. Okay, this is plot. We should probably just go over the plot. Okay, Dad, you go first. What did you give plot out of 10?
Well, let me open this up so I can tell you. I scored the plot as 7.9. I think the thing is, and this is totally admitting that my bias from book 2 and 3, because I've also listened to that. Seeing the depth of the plot in those books, this book is not quite there. It is straightforward. I think, to Nor's point, there's almost a predictability, right? There really is. It is kind of a predictability that's going on, yet it's rewarding. I do want to circle back real fast to kind of what you had brought up before. And I know you're wanting to move this along and talk about plot, but
Yeah, we can
man,
keep going. That's all right.
that's something that I've wrestled with so much, that in real life, to read in a book how rage is going to advance us forward as a group of people, whatever your side is and whoever they are. And I think we're really good at drawing those lines in the sand in real life as a society of there's us and there's them. There's always the thems of the world. And the reality is in real life, man, rage is not what motivates me. Like it is not what moves me to action. And I don't see that as the best catalyst to real change. I just don't. And yet, man, there's plenty of people who disagree with me. In fact, not to get too political, but kind of like the whole foundation of our country. Like that's kind of where it was. And Gabe, you and I have talked, and I'm like, man, I probably would have been a Tory. I probably, at least up to a point, I would have been like, no, like these laws are here for a reason. And we are supposed to be people of law and of order. But to what point? At what point? And I haven't had to grab the feet of my loved one and pull. I haven't had to do that. And I don't know in real life how you'd respond. And with some of the atrocities going on globally, man, I don't know how to respond when it's my neighbor or my family going through. I can't even imagine. So I don't know. I know it's a fictional book, but I think the questions it makes me ask in real life in the here and now, those are real questions I wrestle with.
I mean, like, I think, I'm not sure if this is how the book opens, but there's the really famous line from Red Rising: I would have lived in peace, but my enemies brought me war. It's kind of what you're saying, of like, it feels almost like that violence, that rage, that anger is thrust upon you. It's not something that happens from within, but something that comes from the outside. And I think that it characterizes it very well. I mean, rebellions are often portrayed in stories, and obviously in the first book here, we don't see the completion of rebellion. This is just the very, very beginning. It feels like the beginning. It feels like a significant step forward. But whenever we're talking about plot, I mean, I gave it an 8 out of 10. I very much enjoyed it, particularly because I was a sucker for how things turned out. And I just really liked the whole battles. And I was a huge sucker for all the battles. I was a huge sucker for the plot twists, for when Cassius betrays him and stabs him and leaves him in the snow, and the consequences of his actions being shown, even though they're kind of inevitable actions. Like, he has to kill Cassius's brother. Like, what is he gonna do? I still like that there's a consequence to that. Similarly, I like the Jackal, how the Jackal is a crazy person. How everything unfolds, it is predictable to a degree. Like, I mean, I don't think that I didn't predict, at least, that he was gonna go to Olympus and kill a bunch of the teachers. Like, that wasn't on I thought he was gonna win, but because of the formatting of the games, it allowed for the opportunity of a lot of things to happen in comparison to something like Hunger Games, where, I mean, one winner, you kind of know Katniss is going to win at least. Like, there's a little change there, but it feels more like a grace to the audience. Like, that the main character is going to win. And so this allowed for, you kind of figured that Darrow was going to win it all. Yet also are some other possibilities open. Not everybody you see in the story, not all the side characters who I didn't really care for in this book, just to be clear. That's why I gave it a 6 out of 10. Not that Darrow was the only character. Most of the characters, except for Severo and Cassius, I didn't really care about anybody. That wasn't what drove me. It was the plot for me that was exciting and driving. But yeah, I had something else I was going to say, but I forgot what I was going to say. So Nor, go ahead and give me your kind of overall what you thought of the plot.
Yeah, no, I was still thinking about what you said, the first line of the book, and this whole idea that anger is usually something something external. And I always keep thinking of this psychological view of anger as perceived injustice. It's like, it's always something that you see happening outside of you. It's not necessarily something within you, unless you're angry at yourself, but that's a whole other thing. You're just still perceiving an injustice as to how you should be treating yourself. And I think you can see that a lot here and a lot in the real world. So the points that this book brings up, the questions that it poses, do wonders for it. I mean, this is why we read books in the first place, to gain some insight into the world around us, or to start asking questions that we don't really know the answer to, but eventually we all come to our own conclusion and hopefully make the world a better place because of them or from them. As for plot, though, I give it a 6 out of 10. I just wasn't a big fan of the setup. The predictability is fine. I don't think the predictability of the plot does anything against it. I think it actually helps it a lot because you feel sort of like right from the beginning, you feel the rage building up and you start thinking, oh, this is going to be really good. The first page was amazing. It had my blood pumping. I was excited. This was like the Northman all over again. It's like, oh, this is going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. It's just that the setup wasn't particularly interesting for me. I'm not huge into warfare and like strategy, and
Yeah, that's fair.
I didn't graduate with a degree in military history. So
Okay,
it's just
valid. Yeah, that's fair.
the inner turmoil, though, the anger, the exploration of anger here was phenomenal. That definitely grabbed my attention a lot.
I have a good question that relates to plot here. I was watching an interview with Pierce Brown, and he was talking through the process of getting this published. For those who don't know, he sent it out to like 100+ agents. He got no responses. Then one reached out and was like, "Hey, this is cool. I actually am an assistant to one of these agents, and I'm going to open my own little, like, I don't know, firm or whatever they call it. And would you like to be my first client?" So that's how Pierce Brown got picked up, was by an assistant. And so he got the book. He got an offer from a publisher, but the publisher said, "We want to take the first part of your book before the academy or the institute or whatever they call it. And we want to make that like sprinkled throughout the book as flashbacks." And he said no, obviously, because we have the book we have now. And Nor, I know we both have sort of a grievance a little bit with flashbacks, even though, I mean, I've used it in, I've written 2 books now. And in my second book, they're in both my books. So there's a little bit of, they have a utility. However, would that have helped the book, in your opinion, to sprinkle? Because I mean, it's exposition, it's necessary. But no, you're like, no, not at all.
He's like, just
I think it would have made
choice?
it would have made it worse.
Okay, that's really good.
No. I mean, no, for sure. There is like there is utility to the flashbacks, and they're popular for a reason. And there's some instances where it's done really well. I don't know if this book is one where that would have been the case. I think the absence of Io does a lot of wonders for Darrow's character. The way the dream kind of starts, not necessarily fading, but it starts changing shape a little bit. He starts forgetting some things about Io, but still remembering other things. I think that's important. And with a flashback, I feel like that would have been undermined significantly more. And she would have felt like your classic, I'm sure there's a name for it, but like the classic wife that dies before the zombie apocalypse, and you're watching the videos of her like looking at you, and it's a whole thing. It's like she is a character, and with the flashbacks, ironically, I think she would have become less of a character.
That's a really good point.
More of a tool. But I could be wrong. He could have made some really great flashbacks. We'll never know. I'm kind of glad he's stuck by this.
It would have really disrupted the momentum that is, I think, that he gains in the second half of the book as the actual like games start. I think it would have really slowed down that element, and the breakneck pace at which the story goes, for the most part, goes to its favor. I think at times it can feel a little bit too fast, but for the most part, that driving force is what, for me, kept me glued to the page. I mean, it took me, I think, 3 months to get through the first 150 pages. Like, I'm with you. It really dragged for me. But once I got to the institute, once I got to him actually getting in the draft process and the culling where he's forced to kill Cassius, his brother, I was like, poof, 2 days, finished it.
Yes. So once I got into the culling, things started picking up. I read the book significantly faster after that. But that's like 40% into the book.
Yeah.
Is
it
40%? It's 40%.
I mean, Dad, what do you think? I know we talked about this a little bit earlier. I don't know. What is your general take on flashbacks in books? And would that have been an additive to this story, or would it really detract from the kind of narrative he's trying to tell?
Yeah, I guess my opinion's not as strong as you two. Like, I don't care. Like, if you put a flashback in, I feel like it's lazy a little bit, like it is. but I get it. I get its usefulness. I didn't mean like it was lazy on your part.
You think I'm lazy? I
Your,
understand. I'm your
your
son, and you
two
think your son's
books.
lazy.
That's not what I meant.
I know. I
No
get
way.
it. I get it.
But I feel like it's an easy way for an author to say, gee, there's something I really need you to know about what they've been through so that it can inform the decision they're about to make. Like that's why we do that. Yeah, no, I that first 40%, here's the thing. In full disclosure, I listened as an audiobook on a 2-hour drive to work and a 2-hour drive home from work. So I have 4 hours a day where I was doing nothing. I was listening. And so that 40% was tough. It was challenging just to keep my mind focused on it. And so I would agree, like once it hits the institute, like it is so easy to stay laser focused. And honestly, the drives went really fast because of that. Like the story, just the pacing, I think that's the thing. Like we talk about pacing a lot. The pacing was phenomenal. It was so good. No, but I'm glad overall that he did not opt for the pressure of let's go and add this as a flashback. That's what I would say. That was
it obviously
a lot of words to say. I'm glad he didn't do a flashback.
I mean, it's been how many years since this released, and it's still. I mean, we're still making videos about it and talking about it, and it's still hyped. Like people
Is it
are
not
still
a new book?
gaining.
When was? I don't know when it was released.
No, it released in. Let me look.
Oh, this one's from 2013, but I'm
Yeah,
sure
that would
it's
be my guess.
I'm so cutting edge. I feel like I'm right there.
Yeah,
The
20. So
trendsetter.
the technical release date was January 20th, 2014.
Okay.
So,
Even better.
yeah, great. But I mean, he's released I think 6 books total since then.
Is he
The
done with the
final one is
series?
No, there's this last book that's coming out in the summer. It's
I
called Red
see.
God. So I mean, you can only assume where it's going. It's like the Dune
Wait,
series.
so what
Actually,
you're
he becomes
saying
a
is,
mega worm god.
even if I
The
work through all the
Dune
books,
series?
they're not all out yet.
No,
So
not
I would
yet.
be wasting my time.
You can. I would say so. I mean, you just finished the first trilogy, right? So there's like a second. I guess it's not going to be a trilogy. It's going to be 4 books after that. So I mean, it would be, I think, wise to read the first trilogy and then wait maybe just so you have it. But the second saga part has a lot more pages per book because it's multiple perspectives. Because this is all just Darrow. Then there's multiple POVs in the other books. So I mean, they take longer to get through. Like these books are pretty thin in comparison. But anyways, any other things we need to talk about with plot? I mean, the plot I really liked it. I understand the beginning is kind of necessary. It reminded me of Braveheart. Unfortunate spoilers for Braveheart, but he's driven to war via his wife's death. And I immediately, when I was reading this, I think I texted Dad. I think I texted you, and I think I was like, man, you should read this book. It's basically Braveheart. And then it proceeded to be nothing like Braveheart. And I had to be like, I'm so sorry. Never mind. This isn't Braveheart, but it's still really good. You should totally check it out. But I think that one thing I do want to mention was
And then you start to say, like, they're in space and there's a school, and I'm like,
nope. Yeah, you said nope. Until you're forced into it. But the one big problem with the plot, and I think maybe I should have rated it a little bit lower than 8 out of 10 because of this in retrospect, is promises and payoffs is a big thing that books should have. And this promises revolution. This promises some sort of grand political intrigue, and we get Hunger Games. And that's 40% of the way through that we switch over to a completely different type of story. And it felt like a huge switch up to me. Because we are in this world, you're starting to get a little bit of it. It's like showing the different colors in society. You're getting to see some pinks, you're getting to see purples, and all of these different colors in how they interact and interplay in a science fiction, but also kind of fantastical, but also Greco-Roman, but also cyberpunk to an extent. It's like a lot of mixes of genres, and you're kind of living in the world for a second. And then it goes, okay, actually, we're going to strip away pretty much all the technology. Now we're Hunger Games. And that felt to me like a pretty stark shift from what you expect at the beginning. And so that's what's hard, is the beginning of it is so tough, but that's not the like core of the book. And so I feel like I should have maybe downgraded a little bit from an 8 out of 10 like I gave it. But did you guys feel that as well? I mean, I'm pretty sure I warned both of you about that sort of switch up, and that the beginning doesn't necessarily represent the whole of the book.
Yeah, I mean, I did think that the Hunger Games aspect of it would be a couple chapters at most, and then it just kept going. But to be fair, like at some point in the second half, I stopped thinking about, oh, when is this gonna end, and just accepted it, and actually was, flipping the page, reading the next chapter, seeing what happens next. It did catch me eventually. I can see how it would piss a lot of people off, or throw them off guard. And this could be like a detriment to the book, but I don't think it's a substantial one. I still think what we get is still a really good exploration of, once again, anger and leadership, and is this hierarchy system really the way of the world? I mean, obviously it's not, but it's like starting to poke holes into their little system, and I think it does it in a satisfying way. I will say that.
All right. So that means naturally, we've been talking about it this whole time, but the impact of the book, the significance, the philosophical depth, it to me is the biggest strength I felt of the book.
Yes.
I mean, I give it an 8 out of 10. Nora, you gave it an 8 out of 10. Dad, what'd you give it?
8.1.
8.1 out of 10. Just
Oh.
slightly better.
That's better.
So we're pretty much all on the same page, except for Dad, like I said, just a little bit more.
Just a little bit more.
The thing that was especially captured me was the speech about how what is it, the line? It's like all men are not created equal or something like that. And
The noble lie.
yeah, noble lie. Yeah. This idea, essentially the games as a way to give people hard times so that they don't get their bellies full and forget what it means to earn the right to rule. And I thought that was so interesting, like a built-in mechanism to earn the right to rule. It reminded me of like masculinity rituals where people, like boys, become a man, and it's like a thing where you suffer through an event. I don't know if this is true. This could be completely fake, but I always remembered as a kid, like fire ants on the hand. You gotta like survive the fire ants, and then you. No, not me experiencing that, Dad. I meant more like I remembered a history of like a tribe I read about or something, and that could be completely fake and
So I was
disproven by
thinking,
this
like,
point.
Gabe, you got to be a man. Let the
Yeah.
fire ants bite you.
No.
Is this
dad-
canon?
Yeah, my whole body covered in fire ants. 20
This
days,
game's just
20 nights,
shaking.
and become a man. No. It just reminded me of that, of like a ritual in becoming an adult, a ritual in becoming a leader, and that this is like the test. This is the mechanism in which leaders are decided, is through literally merit. And so I kind of was like, I mean, do we want a meritocracy? Obviously, none of the other colors get an opportunity for such meritocracy. It's limited, so there's obvious forms of oppression here, but I mean, is this actually a meritocracy? Is this the core of it?
Wasn't at the end because bribery.
Exactly.
And I think that will always happen
Yeah.
in the real world. So I don't think like a meritocracy is necessarily the best way to go about it. But I also don't know enough to make an informed opinion on this. I will say that much.
I think that's fair. No, I mean the whole like, yeah, how true can a meritocracy be given the
Yeah.
natural failings of humanity to give their loved ones, or ones that might give them an advantage, some sort of advantage, right? So, I mean, in this, it's most clearly seen with the jackal, who's kind of destined to win. It's kind of preordained that he's going to be the victor. Daryl obviously overcomes this by killing everyone, overcoming the fact that it's rigged, but they really try. I mean, the proctors give Cassius the like
Yeah.
footage,
And they could have gotten away with
Daryl
it if it wasn't for those meddling kids.
dying.
They did it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I thought that was a really interesting take, though, in that even in this perfect system, which is designed to show you what suffering is and what it means to earn the right to rule, they still have the pride to not learn the right to rule. Like, I thought that was a really clever way to kind of criticize their own system in a system that's naturally really, really interesting. I don't know. Is democracy a cancer? I mean, we talked about this a little bit. We brought this up during Mistborn, didn't we? What was it? I don't
We've
think we
talked
called
about
a
it before.
cancer.
We've talked about it before.
Have we called it a cancer? Wait, did I call it a
we
cancer?
I
Was
don't
that
think we
like a
did.
Freudian slip from me reading Red Rising and like not realizing that?
How dare you? How dare
So,
you?
Dad, what's your biggest take? I mean, given that you're such a supportive Marxist personality,
Wow.
well, I know you really liked the book. So, what is your take on the noble lie of democracy? I see, Nora, that you wrote it. That the cancer that poisoned mankind, that the meek should inherit the earth and that the strong should nurture the gentle.
We all agree with this statement.
We all agree with this statement. Let the world know.
Did Nora write that?
No,
No.
no. That's from the book. Yeah. Actually, Nora has a little side gig as a writing manifestos.
That's what I do.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
playing.
No,
I'm playing.
I think sometimes, what I like about books like this, it does make you question. I mean, I'll never forget moving to another country, living in another country for a few years. And I think coming face to face with the reality that the rest of the world doesn't look at things the same way that Americans do. That was a challenging lesson to learn. It really was. Some of the things we take for granted, whether it's an educational system, whether it's what you want to be when you grow up, what you want to major in, like these kind of questions, that's a very different mindset in other nations. And so I think we do have a gift in this nation, and yet it's not perfect. And I think that's what this book forces us to do is look at the imperfections, to look at the way that pride influences everything, to look at the way that if someone has means, it just kind of jumps over all of the merit, like we talked about, right? You can have all the merit in the world, yeah, but I got the money, so it doesn't matter in the end. Man, those are hard truths to swallow, and yet they're reality.
Yeah, and I definitely thought about the Reds at the beginning of the story. And there's a lot of comfort in communal, like a communal lack of understanding. What is the word here? I'm looking for the word ignorance. There's a lot of comfort in communal ignorance. And I mean that in an honest way, right? Like before Darrow knows that the rest of Mars and the rest of the planets are already colonized and lush with life, he is satisfied in his world to an extent, obviously, until EO dies, right? But he has his world. He has his community. He has his family, his mom. He had EO. He is comforted by the reality in which he lives in. And it's not necessarily as much about the individual. Now, for Darrow, it is to an extent, like he has as we see throughout the story, a bit of a pride problem, right? Like he has a bit of a pride problem. He definitely wants to be the best, and he is okay with being like, I'll be the leader, everybody, and standing up and not only doing what's right, but also taking the brunt of doing the wrong thing. However, you see other characters around him who don't have that same initiative, of course. But you see in the Golds, individualism to the extreme, individualism to the max. Now, of course, when they're set into the games, they, just like any other people group, the followers follow and the leaders lead. However, there's still this fundamental community element on the level of the Reds in their ignorance that you do not see for pretty much any of the other colors. Like whenever they get to the big wide world, to the cities where all the knowledge is free and you can buy whatever you want, and there's this fake meritocracy, life becomes a lot more difficult, a lot harder, and the questions you're forced to ask a lot more complex. But that's not the same under the surface. And I definitely thought throughout this book and throughout the series of like, sometimes you think it'd be better not to know what's on the surface. Sometimes that is okay. Is there anything wrong with not knowing that X and Y is a lie? Is there anything wrong with ignorance? Is that actually a failing or a misstep? Because I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think his mom is lesser because she doesn't know that Mars is colonized already. I think that she seems like quite a strong woman. Same thing with EO, right?
Yeah, right. I think your worth is proportional to your world. So, like, if you're a red, you don't know about this big universe beyond you. It's the way you live your life in the red community that kind of almost defines your worth to yourself in there. Whereas, once you know the truth, once you pierce the veil and see beyond,
Nice. Pierce the veil. That's the like afterlife, and that's really
yeah.
good. That's good.
Do you want to like do you rise or do you cower? And and I think that's a really good question. It's the kind of question that I like to think about a lot. And so this book really does that really well about, this whole thing, the scope of what is happening around Darrow is huge. And he wants to go back. He wishes he could go back. All he wanted, all he was content, perfectly content with living with Io in his little place, dreaming, that eventually the people of Mars will thrive as a whole, not knowing truth. But then he knows the truth and he has to live for more, kind of like what Io was telling him to do this whole time. And I think this book really brings up a lot of interesting questions that you're posing here too. And, is meritocracy the way to go? Is democracy the way to go? Is communism the way to go?
Yeah, Red Rising.
But also there's this
Reaper.
there's this quote in the book, right, that says man cannot be freed by the same injustice that enslaved it. And it doesn't necessarily apply to this, but it's the idea, we assume that the right system is already it's one of the systems that we already have, when that's not necessarily the case. We are evolving as humanity, we as a society, we are evolving. The democracy from 1,000 years ago is not necessarily the same democracy that we have now. And it's not going to be the same democracy that we have 10,000 years into the future. Democracy might be erased, but so might communism or fascism or meritocracy or any other type of cracy, There might be something else. And it is kind of up to us, the future generations, to start coming up with better answers. There might be a better answer that we haven't even dreamed of. And yeah, I don't know. Do we have the answer? I'm not sure. Will we get
Yes, we
there?
do.
I'm optimistic.
I have the answer.
Right. But really, we already know what the right answer is. It's communism.
Yeah, it's communism, naturally so. I actually do want to ask, I think our final question for Impact, besides, of course, I do want to know what everybody like emotionally felt via the book. Did you buy into the romances? Was your blood pumping whenever it should be pumping? Did the twists and turns actually like give it a reaction? But besides that, I do want to actually talk about a little bit of the distinction between this is heavily philosophical, so I apologize. But the distinction between terrorism, which we see at the beginning of the story, like there's news reports of terrorism trying to incite social change from the group that I forgot their names. What is their name, Nor? You just read the book.
Oh, the Sons of Ares?
The Sons of Ares. The terrorism from the Sons of Ares compared to this shift in strategy to putting Darrow in place, right? Kind of a spy of sorts, but a spy that's meant to enact social change for the good. Yet inevitably, like he's still using violence to achieve those means, but so does every other gold. So it's not like he's super different. But what is the distinction between those means? Is Darrow's way better than the terrorism way? Is violence a justified means of social change? Is what Darrow is doing just and right?
That depends on your definition of just and right. No, I'm just
mean,
playing.
I think, yeah,
it does, but
he's going at it the same as any other gold. Like, I mean, he's been medically adjusted, but now it's mano y mano, right?
Mano y mano. That's good. No, you got that? Spanish? Can you translate?
yeah. Quid pro
I mean,
quo.
no, I'm just saying, like, there's no reason he couldn't get there, and all of a sudden Cassius just like whomps, or that, yeah, that any of them would all of a sudden be like, you don't belong here, like very
Very
clearly. So he has to get there and hold his own.
That's a good point. I mean, once he becomes a gold, he has to act like a gold, and he's not really doing in this book. He's not doing anything different than the rest of them. I guess the only thing he's doing is winning, win, 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 no matter what, So I guess that's the difference, is he succeeds. But I mean, the whole idea of like, what would the equivalent be in our world? I mean, obviously we don't have. I mean, I guess we do have race, that is a color, but like we don't have a caste system in the same way that they have in this book. Social
Quid pro
injustice,
quo.
quid pro quo. Yeah.
Do you
Oh
beat
my
them at their own game by playing with the same rules, or do you completely, like Daryl would say, shift the paradigm?
Shift the paradigm. I never even realized that was like a big phrase in the book.
I mean, I haven't read any of the other books, but the way I
But you
see
will.
it, eventually,
He goes, yeah.
maybe. No, I probably will. But I think it says a lot, at least for me, that if he were to dismantle this system by playing the game that they created, by playing by their rules, by doing the same thing as they're doing, I'm thinking about that, and I think of how unsatisfying that would be. I think it says a lot about how that's not the way to go about things. But then again, that's my opinion. But, I think, again, I mean, it's a quote that I just quoted. Where is it?
You
Man
said
cannot
quid
be
pro quo.
freed. Yeah, quid pro quo. Men cannot be freed by the same injustice that enslaved it. Like,
It's a good point.
you have to completely shift the paradigm. You have to make a new game, make some new rules, find a different way. The system's not working.
Oppressing the oppressors is just more oppression. That's the
Yeah,
same
exactly.
problem.
And like that being said, is terrorism the answer? I highly doubt it. It's an extremist. It's a Billy over here.
I highly support the. No,
It's like,
no,
this is the guy that gave room to it for 3 years.
Let it be known here on Novels and Nightcaps, we do not support terrorism.
We do not.
We stand in solidarity
better
against
way.
terrorism. There's a
You
better
guys are
way.
knuckleheads. You do know you're on a watch list now, right?
So be it. Red Rising.
The Soviets?
Oh my gosh. No, I agree. But I mean, I would say that, what would I say? Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Terrorism is not the answer,
He
guys.
doesn't even know what he says anymore.
I don't even know what I'm saying. Yeah, terrorism's not the answer.
I
think
don't know the
impact of this
answer,
book is great.
but I know that's not the answer.
Wow, I think that's really good. And that honestly is, I think, the best way to distinguish right from wrong is identify what is obviously wrong first. And I think you hit on the nose there. You can clearly identify. I mean, like in the book itself, there are clearly unjustifiable actions that occur that everybody kind of agrees is wrong. Like rape happens. Whenever rape happens, pretty much everybody's like, yeah, bad guy. That's a bad thing to do. Those are bad people. Yet murder is a little bit more on the questionable side, which is fascinating. It's fascinating, right? Like that we have vengeance or revenge being enacted. And that is, I mean, we see Darrow allow Cassius to take vengeance. And that's a leading misstep. He learns from that actually it's not right to just let your army get vengeance the whole time. It's not right to just let your army run free and pillage and rape and do what they want, because that way they'll like you. That's not the way to lead, because that enforces bad behavior, and that enforces the exact sort of injustice that he's trying to fight against, right? So we're clearly able to identify the things that are wrong. So he tries to find a different path. He tries to find a different avenue. So I think that you're squinting as if you don't agree. I see that, Dad. Why are you squinting?
Me. Now, I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, is killing and murder different? Because you're talking about Cassius, and I'm just thinking, it's not murder, that's killing. Like killing and murder is
Yeah,
different.
vengeance.
If you're in war, that's killing. That's not murder. Or are you saying they're the same thing?
Well, I mean, I think that, no, I don't think that they're always the same thing. I think that there can be a difference. What we see though is like pretty much an execution, right? Like it's an execution. So I think that's a lot.
Is an
messier.
execution murder?
I think that, no, if you actually want my opinion. So sorry, Nor, this is a whole military philosophy, 100%.
So Nuremberg, the hangings, was that murder?
So I think that whenever you take a prisoner of war, They have rights, and they have rights that they wouldn't usually have as just a normal combatant, right? If you're fighting somebody in combat and they raise a gun to fight you and you shoot them dead, obviously that's not wrong to shoot them. It's self-defense. But the moment you arrest them, they have certain rights and privileges. It's wrong to just let them starve. It's wrong to like torture them. I don't think that torture is a good thing. And so there's obviously some level of rights and privileges. And so I think the question of execution is a lot messier. But what is the cause of execution? Is it the Holocaust, or is it Cassius wanting revenge? Because Cassius wanted revenge. It wasn't about justice. It was about revenge. And that, I think, is a clear distinction. 100%.
So wait. Okay, we're not going to get distracted
from
on this,
from
'cause
a
that's so
from
many
a
questions to ask.
psychological from a psychological perspective, and I mean, I don't have the like warfare knowledge or
No,
anything like
we
that,
want the psychological as well.
but the action, like stripping it away from morality, the action is a tool. The tool serves a purpose. So the real question is, what was the purpose behind it?
So you would say, Nor, you would argue that an execution from a war crime, the execution is still murder because it's still out of vengeance in your heart. Yes or no?
That's not what he said.
That's
I'm asking-
definitely.
I'm
That is,
asking for clarification.
that is definitely not what I said.
I'm pretty sure that's a logical fallacy that you just
Is
committed.
Yeah,
that what you
I
were
don't know if that is
alluding
one.
to?
It is
that-
one.
Do you
it's one of
allude to
them.
that or no?
I'm not. I don't have to answer this.
He pleads the fifth.
I'm not entirely sure what the question is asking. I will say that much. But I
that's
think
good.
it depends. I think it depends on how you
need to
define
finish your
certain
drink,
things.
and you will answer so much more clearly.
Okay, guys, we gotta. We're at a minute. We're at an hour 15 already. We need to move on to style. Something drier, a bit more
Okay.
clear cut. I thought the
Yeah,
style
yeah,
on this was not great. I'm gonna be so straight out. I give it a 6 out of 10. I thought it was. I mean, it's obviously his first book. Like, it's his debut novel, and it had some serious struggles. I thought the dialogue, especially, could be quite wooded, quite stiff, or over dramatic to like an intense level, and just cartoonish, I think, is the best way to actually say it. Now the pacing at times could be a little too fast, or at the beginning a little too slow, but overall the pacing I thought was not necessarily the problem. I had to get used to the present tense. I wasn't super used to that. I mean, I wrote a book now in present tense, but at the time when reading it, it just wasn't something I was super familiar or comfortable with.
Are
so
you
I had
more
to get used to
accustomed to
that.
past tense?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Definitely more accustomed to reading past tense. However, he's saying this because we're writing together right now, and it's in present tense. And he, in the drafts that he sends me, just switches to past tense. And then I'm like, Dad, you wrote half this chapter in past tense. He's like,
Yeah,
like-
that will do it.
we should have
That
just
will do
switched to. It's too late, though. It's too late. We're like over our 100 and something pages in now, and it's too late. That's too late. You got to just stick with it. So we're just, anyways. That's besides the point. The style was average to maybe less than that, maybe a little above average. It elicited a lot of exciting feelings, so it succeeded in that element. But at times I did notice it, which means it, and not necessarily always in a good way. So there were some killer speeches, like we've talked about, some killer lines, but there was also some really rough lines and some really eye-rolling lines and eye-rolling situations that the characters were in that detracted from it. So that's why I give it a 6 out of 10. Read better. I've definitely read worse as well. Somebody
Yeah.
else, Dad, give me your opinion.
Yeah, so when it came to world and to style, I'm going above average. I'm going low 8s on both of those. Here's the thing is I've read The Martian, and I've read, what's the other one that same dude wrote?
Project Hail Mary.
Yeah, I read that too. I listened to it anyway. Same thing. Not really. Sorry, Nork. I got the look. Did you see Nork's face? You got to zoom in on his face when you edit that.
I'm playing.
Editor zoom in. Editor enhance.
You gotta
I don't.
enhance.
I don't feel that strongly about that.
No, so I would say that it's stronger than what I expected of this genre. Honest, and maybe that's my own shortcomings when it comes to this genre, because this is a newer genre to me. It's just not something that I would normally pick up off the shelf and say, this is what I want to read. It's just not. And yet I found the setting, the flow, I found it rich, and I found it engaging, and I found it fast paced and really, really enjoyable. So that's why the score.
Solid. Nor?
No, I gave it a 6 out of 10.
God. I gave it a 6 too. I also gave it a 6.
Gabe.
Sorry.
I think it's a lot for the same reasons that Gabe already mentioned. And
He's like, Gabe's the bad guy here.
yeah. Let's keep But anyway, it's kind of like my drink, you know. It has like some really good stuff. It has the whiskey, the bourbon. Like, oh, this is good stuff. And then it has, I poorly mixed my drink intentionally. It had a lot more Coke in it, more Coca-Cola, you know. It had a lot of that sweet, sugary, which in this case, in the book, would be like the melodramatic prose. I rolled my eyes so many times, but I also gasped out loud a lot of times, and I haven't highlighted a book in like a year, so that's a big deal for me, you know. So that was really one of the biggest strengths and weaknesses simultaneously, I would say. I think there's a lot of the like YA elements that kind of slip up a lot. It's not necessarily YA. It's like I mean, we talked about this before. It's like the bridge between YA and like an actual more nuanced story than the Hunger Games. But it still kind of has those slip ups that took me out. And that's the main thing. It took me out. And when something like that takes me out of the story, it kind of brings the score down for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my reasoning for a 6 out of 10.
I'm with you. I agree. I will fully say it gets better. Some of the melodramatic tones, some of the rough eye-rolling character moments, they're just gone. Like, they get better. I can't explain it. I guess he gets better as a writer. Makes sense. You know, he learned.
Yeah.
But I will fully say that problem goes away. And then finally, world. Now, this one is impossible, I think, to distinguish once I know more about the world. Like, I don't know how I can possibly take specifically just the first book. So it's really hard for me because I don't know how to conceptualize the book without the knowledge I have now. So my score is quite high because I'm quite invested in the world at this point. So like but just on the color system and how that's actualized, I think is a big deal, and how each color has a specific role and how it adds a lot more nuance because of the drawbacks of that being like pinks being abused, for example. That's a pretty serious element that we see. So I mean, I give it an 8 out of 10. I really like the world. I think it's a world that'll stick with me forever. But again, I don't know how much of that is because of Red Rising and how much of that is because of later books that obviously expand the world to a much greater level, and you get a lot more intricacy and culture. But I do wonder, Nor, so this is a question for you. You've read Will of the Many, which also has a bit of the Roman atmosphere, and that obviously came later, right? This was released in 2014. And that takes some elements and does some of the parts better. Now, in the end, of course, as you might expect with like 6+ books, it's now its own thing. It doesn't feel just Roman, like it's become its own living and breathing world. But in Red Rising in particular, you get the most Roman feeling book that you can in the science fiction setting. So because of seeing Will of the Many, which did the world building quite well, we kind of both agreed. Did that color your perception of this in a different way? Because it feels a little less original because you've read something already that has this sort of Roman inspiration.
I don't think so. I wasn't thinking too much about the Will of the Many reading this book. I thought about it to some extent, but not enough, I think, for it to like significantly change my view on this. I gave the world a 5 out of 10.
That's rough. That's so rough.
I was not a big fan of it. I mean, again, you know, more books, obviously things expand. There's a lot of things that are not answered here at all. Obviously, I can admit that much, or I can acknowledge that much. But when I first read about the colors, I rolled my eyes. I was like, oh, Of course. Of course, the obsidians are the grunts and the pinks are the the prostitutes, like, of course, like, like, all right, okay, I get it. The gold are the best and blah, 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 blah. But, so I wasn't a huge fan of that. I also wasn't a huge fan of all the, like, sci-fi gizmo gadget names where, like, half the word is, like, lowercase and then the second half of the word is, like, uppercase.
Yeah, that's kind of annoying. I will
And
agree.
then all the good men and the bloody.
You didn't
or-
like that? That's sick.
I did
When he
not
goes,
like
"Bloody
that at
damn,
all.
good man."
It's like, am
Gory.
I reading a book about like teenagers, or am I reading a book about 60-year-old highlights? So it's those things that kind of bothered me. It's just not my cup of tea. That's what I'll say. A 5 out of 10, and I've talked about this before, and I think it's not necessarily accurate anymore because I'm kind of trashing on this too much, and I like our world too much. But a 5 out of 10 is what I consider, like, it's the world. Here it's more here it's more of like I can acknowledge the purpose and the nuances behind it. The flavoring, I didn't particularly vibe with too much, and it kind of took me out of it. That's another thing. Like, there were so many. It's not necessarily the book itself. It's just like the parts of the book that took me out of it as a reader, and kind of places where there should have been momentum, and that would have like enriched the experience for me. I just kind of tripped up and took a moment to think about it. I was like, oh, this is kind of silly. And it took me out of it a lot. I mean, I'm still curious about a lot of things. The Roman aspect of it was pretty cool, I would say. The actual, like, surface of Mars, when it was briefly shown, that looked amazing. That looked spectacular. I mean, I felt the shock that Darrow felt because I did not see that coming at all. Like, oh, this whole thing has been a lie. This world's already terraformed. They are spreading across the solar system, as far as I know, right? At least at this point. Yeah. So that's interesting. So, it's mid for me. It's like a 5 out of 10. Like, there's some good, there's some bad. It's at the middle for me.
I know you prefer a lot more like whimsical, like
Yeah.
elements. And this
No,
is not whimsical.
No.
Yeah.
I, and that's a good point. I do. I have my personal taste, but at the same time, I mean, you've seen me read so many different types of books. I can take that aside, like my preference aside, and just be like, I just wasn't too into this as for what it was.
Yeah, like trying to think back, I remember not having a strong opinion about the world after reading Red Rising, just because you don't like you have the colors, you have like Lycos, and you have, I guess, the mines a little bit, but it's really light overall because you spend so much time in this game where they kind of create their own world to an extent, right? They create their own factions and they have their own thing going on, and so I remember being like, okay, well, like I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it.
Yeah,
So I
that's
don't
the
know.
main thing. It's like
Yeah, that's fair.
I got it. I was not impressed or like wowed by it. I think that's the main thing.
Okay, Dad, what did you give
Billy,
World?
what did you give it?
Yeah, let's see this.
Yeah, so Nor's wrong. I mean, that's really what we're going to talk about now with his whimsical worlds. No, so here's what I gave it. I gave it an 8.4. But here's why. As I gave it an 8.4, probably influenced heavily by books 2 and 3. I'm sure. But at the same time, I tried to base it strictly off of book 1. I personally have not read a ton of science fiction. So, Nor, when you're talking about like, well, of course the pink and of course the gold and of course the obsidian, and that's a whole new world to me. Like that's not part of what makes up my it just isn't, right? That's not what I'm normally picking up. So that was a whole new thing for me. So it wasn't super predictable. The other thing, like I did read, like, when the 6th book or 7th book of Harry Potter came out, like, I read it that night. Like, I'm going to stay up all night, read it start to finish, read the whole thing. Why? Because I love the world. And the world, for the most part, was the houses. It was broken into the factions. And so a little bit, and I think, Gabe, you said it well, that, like, this book is a good bridge for people who don't normally read these types of books. I think in the same way that Harry Potter probably does. because you can understand houses. You can understand, like, yeah, if you capture the flag, I understand capture the flag, like best game ever, right? I understand that. And so to explain, like, these houses have different strengths, and the people, the sorting hat, basically, the sorting hat is going to break you into the different houses. And I'm all about that. Like, that's fun. It's something I can grab onto and say, that's understandable for me. So a little bit is something that I haven't seen since Harry Potter, and it was super enjoyable. The world was super enjoyable because of that.
I mean, you miss young adult as a genre. Like that just like wasn't a thing for you.
No.
Because I mean, for
Yeah,
Nor and
yeah,
I mean,
'cause
like I read like it was
Hunger
growing up-
Games, Divergent,
Yes,
Ender's
yeah,
Game.
Maze Runner, Ender's
I
Game.
yeah,
read
Lord of
those,
the
but those were
Flies.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah, but like we were young adults whenever we read.
But you bring up a really good point. I mean, at the end of the day, these are all like personal opinions. It's like, different perspectives across space and time, like I'm not just age, obviously, which is a big one. Like, yeah, I was more into the young adult like stuff as it was coming along, and it was like written for people my age. Whereas, those books came out at a different point in your life.
You had like what, like Lord of the Rings? That was your
yeah, like The
Lord of the
Hobbit,
Rings came out whenever you were a kid. The Hobbit, yeah.
the
That's
Communist Manifesto.
right. The Communist, yeah.
Oh, the primary
Yeah.
source. No.
when I was a child and read Lion, Witch, in the Wardrobe.
Yeah.
No. But
Growing up with the bombings and such.
Yeah,
I gotcha.
but it's also, like on an individual level. Had I read this book like really early on in my reading career, I probably would have been like all over it. If I read it 10 years from now, I might feel even stronger about this. Like I might like it even more, or I might hate it even more.
Only 10 years.
Man, for me, 10 years is a long time.
That is pretty much, that's like almost half our lives.
Wow.
Just like a shame of only your failure of imagination to picture anything beyond 10 years. And I feel you, Nor. I feel you.
Hey man,
Oh,
I'm
man.
20.
When we're, like,
10 years.
30-something,
10 years is half my life. But yeah,
Sorry, Dad.
like at the end of the day, this is
That
why we have
beard
these
seems
discussions.
whiter and whiter each moment that passes by. Gandalf.
If it makes you feel any better, I have a couple of gray hairs.
No, you
Sprouting from-
don't.
It's good.
Look
I'm
at you.
balding
No.
over here. I'm balding.
Anyway, go ahead, Nor.
Sorry.
No, I think that's all I really have to say on it. I'm young.
Dude, young, dumb, and broke. That's us, man.
No. But let's see. We went over style,
Dude.
world,
It's
impact,
like, let's
plot,
get back to the
character.
script. No, but I
All we
think
have left-
what you're saying, Nor, is valid, though. I think you're saying, like, if you had a gap in your reading when it comes to science fiction, when it comes to fantasy, if there was a gap, this book may be looked at differently. But because you have so many books bridging that gap, there's a little bit too much predictability in this. And I think that's very fair because again, this is not my normal genre. I'm reading mystery and crime stuff and people killing people and espionage. And I mean, that's my go-to.
I mean, at
For
the
sure.
end of the day, reading, there are two things you're searching for. You're either searching for comfort, right? Something familiar and comforting. Like you might reread, I don't know, Harry Potter, for example. It's comforting. It's warm in the soul. Or you're looking for something new, right? You're looking for a novel experience. And so there are elements that are novel about Red Rising, but there are also, for people who have read similar books, things that are not novel, things that you see coming, things that you know already about. And so that's the difficulty, is as you read more, you become more and more cynical because you've kind of seen so much of it. Because there's only so many plot structures, and there's only so
Exactly.
much an author can put in.
Yeah, but the best books often mix both comfort and new. Like The Will of the Many.
The
No.
drawback
I hear there's a great podcast about that.
It's a
Yeah,
really
you
good
should check the
podcast
episode.
You should check it out. Yeah.
I will say though, like to call this an entry level book would be a disservice. Like an entry level book would be Hunger Games. And yes, that is derogatory to the Hunger Games. This is not entry level.
Derivative is
But, It's a great book. Definitely check it out. If I was the publisher and I didn't know anything about Pierce Brown and I read this manuscript, even though I have a lot of issues with it, I would still publish it because of what it has to say. And what it has to say is very important. Even if I disagree with a lot of plot points, a lot of weird stylistic choices, what it has to say is worth listening. Just like this episode.
And
That was
that's
big.
why that was really good. And that's why your subjective rating is an ebook.
I think I wrote that. I wrote that before I went to bed. I would go with paperback.
Okay, let's go.
But like on a personal scale, like
of course,
yeah.
of course.
I'm glad I read it.
So
It's on my
just to
shelf.
explain, for those who don't know, this is our fully subjective scale. We consider it a collage, right? It's not an actual ranking system. This is rather, how would you like to experience? Is it an ebook? Is it a library book? Is it a paperback? Is it a hardcover? A collector's edition? Maybe even a signed copy if you want to get fancy. What is it to you, right? So like for this, I would consider it, having read the series, it to me is a collector's edition because of the place that it kind of has in my reading journey, in my reading psyche. And I mean, I've been chewing on them. And not because this book in particular is the best in the series, not at all, but it's just it's the start of such an extensive journey. I mean, I see it kind of similar to how A Game of Thrones for A Song of Ice and Fire. I don't think A Game of Thrones is the best in the series, but it is just the beginning of such an arduous and extensive and painstaking journey that you go on. And I mean, what better way to commemorate it? So I would give it a collector's edition. Dad, what would be your subjective rating for this?
And just so that we go over the list fully, so that he can consider all
Is
his
audiobook
options.
an option?
I think it might be, is it? Okay, you don't have to say the one that you consumed it on. It could be
No.
if you could.
Here's the thing. I don't know that I wouldn't want a collector's edition. Like, this wouldn't be that near and dear to my heart. To me, a paperback is, I might pick it up and peruse it again to try to find little lines that I've highlighted. No, this would be an audiobook. This was like, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed
He
it
doesn't
once.
care about what it's
Like, no, I don't really care that much. Like, it was good. It was fine. But like, I gained everything I need from it. I'm done. Check. Move on.
This whole time, I've been going through this whole episode, walking around freaking landmines.
Nor is going to put it.
I've been taking every single blow.
That's really good. Oh my gosh! I mean, we should probably
Well
also
played,
say, I don't
Billy.
think we've
Well
said our
played.
overall scores, right? I don't think we actually gave it. Oh my gosh, that was funny. I don't think we've ever given it our overall scores. We should probably
No.
do that. Our overall rating, overall impressions. We're running at almost an hour 40 here. So our really quick, just kind of going through this before we wrap up. I get a 7.2 out of 10. That's a combination score. So that's combining the weight. It's a weighted scale. We try to be as objective as we possibly can with this. A 6 out of 10 for character, 8 out of 10 for plot, 8 out of 10 for impact, 6 out of 10 for style, 8 out of 10 for world, leading to a 7.2 overall because of the weight of characters, and mostly because of the weight of characters, because that's obviously essential to a story. So that really dragged the score down, which I'm okay with the 7.2. I very much enjoyed my time with it, yet, it's only the beginning. So now, Nora, what was your overall score here? I just want to talk for people who haven't listened before, kind of the very quick and dirty, like how we actually do the objective rating scale, because that's each thing is weighted and it's added up. And I don't know, I didn't do the math for mine this time. I failed at it, so I gave it to you.
Yeah, no, I know it's really hard math, but
so easy.
If it makes you feel any better, I also got it wrong the first try.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, no, it's I try to weight the averages as best as possible. I feel like when you're coming up with like an objective scale for your subjectiveness, it's really hard to do something like that. But essentially, characters are worth like roughly 30% of the score. So is plot. Impact would be like 20%. Style and world each are 10% of the score. Obviously, this is some really loose math, and it doesn't apply the same way in each book. It depends on the type of book you're reading too. We haven't really accounted for that in a while, but I gave it a 6.3 out of 10. I think it's a good read. I mean, it has a lot of gems in it. It just took me out nearly as many times, and so for me, that kind of sullied the experience a little bit, brought it down a little bit. I feel like it could have been a 7 for me if I didn't roll my eyes as much as I did, and if it hadn't taken me 300 pages to read the first 100 pages.
It's fair. That's fair. And Dad, what was your overall score?
Wait. Did Nor say 6.33?
Uh,
Nor, what books? You should text me. Any books that you have that's like 8.5 or above. Like, I will consume every single one of those books.
Yeah.
Because holy cow, you're a tough grader, dude.
You've already read Stormlight, okay? You can't. The Stormlight was like, I agree with Nor. Stormlight's like super, super awesome, and you were like, that's fine.
Yeah, it wasn't
like
that great.
You listened to the books, and you were like, whatever.
It was forgettable. It was exhausting. Here we go. So
Gabe, this is how you feel, huh?
I gave this book a I don't know what I gave it, a 7.99. So I gave it just under 8. And yeah, here's the deal. We've talked about it at length in this podcast already, but I feel like for a guy who's not normally in this genre, it was just really enjoyable. I love the depth of the themes. I love the hard questions it makes you, as I'm driving for hours, just about turn it off and contemplate some of the hard questions that are being asked is so good. And then it turned into very lengthy conversations that just rabbit trailed off. In fact, I would even say it's done the same thing in this podcast. It's normally a 60-minute podcast, has just kept going and going and going because the themes force you to think deeper. It's not shallow. It seems shallow, just like the paper plane. What used to be a paper plane. It seems shallow with the first sip, but as you keep going, there's a lot of complexity there.
And so, Nor, did you finish your drink?
I did finish my drink.
Let's go,
Because
buddy.
here at Novels and Nightcaps, we finish our drinks. Everybody have a good night.